Welcome into Buccaneers Insider Live, presented by Miller Lite. Casey Phillips here with senior writer and editor Scott Smith, and we are here to talk about all the Buccaneers news, answer any questions you guys have for us. If you have any of those, make sure you leave them underneath the live video on the Facebook page, and that's where we'll find them at the end of the show. For now, let's dive into kind of the back half of minicamp. When we did the show last week, minicamp wasn't over yet, so we've got a few more things that we've been able to learn from different podium sessions and hearing from some of the different guys on the team. So first of all, I know that, of course, everyone loves to talk about this Buccaneers offense, and there are so many fun people that are a part of it, and it feels like, could this possibly get better? And apparently a pretty important part of that offense thinks so.
Yeah, you wonder, Tom Brady, he comes over here to play for the Bucs and is age 43 and 44 seasons and throws 40 touchdown passes to break the Bucs all-time record, shatter it really. And then the next year breaks it again with 43 and looks just like he hasn't lost anything off of his arm. You know, he's playing as well as he ever has, really. And then he briefly considers retirement, and then he comes back. And so, of course, you're going to wonder, you know, is he going to be capable of the same things? Is he capable of more? Can the Bucs get more out of this offense, which basically is the best offense they've ever had, especially in terms of passing? And, you know, Tom thinks you can. And you know, when you ask him, how can you get better? He's not going to give you a statistical thing.
Right.
He's not going to give you statistical goals. But I just mentioned he's thrown 40 touchdown passes in each of his seasons as a Buccaneer, and now he has 3 of those in his career. That's tied for the NFL record. If he could do it again, that's the NFL record for most seasons with 40-plus touchdown passes. And since he thinks there's more to get out of this offense, because he says they really, 2 years now, they really know each other really well. They have great chemistry. They all know what each other's doing. That he thinks there is more they can get out of this offense. So 40 touchdown passes wouldn't be crazy at all.
It's incredible. And so many of his records are just based on the fact that he's been in the league for so long. But this is showing that most of those are coming from here towards the end of his career. It's unbelievable.
I mean, Vinny Testaverde was in the league for a long time too, and he ended up with a lot of yards, but not the type of numbers that Tom Brady's put in, because not only has he been in the league for a long time, but for so many of those seasons, he's had just incredible production.
And I think it speaks to the red zone weapons this team has as well. When you're thinking about touchdown passes, a lot of times
that's true, yeah,
those are going to be to guys like Mike Evans, Cam Brate, and of course it was Gronk in recent years, that you have so many of these big, effective red zone targets.
Yeah, you don't have to try to run it in from the 2
every single time,
right?
and it keeps the defense guessing, which has been huge for them. All right, and also let's talk about special teams, an area that doesn't quite get as much attention as that offensive part necessarily, but I feel like this is the time of year where you and I always switch to talking about the training camp battles. That's always the fun thing to talk about, and in the last few years there hasn't been as much to talk about. There was so many guys coming back, and now we do feel like there are going to be a few of these this year. So the first one we're going to talk about is actually a kicker.
Yeah, you don't usually hear much about special teams unless they're going badly, right? And Ryan Succop, there was actually a little bit of a battle, but it was so late in 2020 because Matt Gay had his rookie season in 2019 and had some ups and downs, and then in camp in 2020, he was again having some ups and downs, and I believe the Bucs by this point had Tom Brady. I believe they thought they were Super Bowl contenders, and they just didn't want to take a chance that kicking issues could cost them a game or two. And so they brought in Ryan Succop, who had overcome an injury in Tennessee and had a really good career overall in the final week. And really it was only like 2 practices in 1 game, and then they gave him the job over Matt Gay, and it went great. And, you know, no matter what happens, Ryan Succop has had 2 very good years with the Buccaneers. In fact, he has the all-time career field goal percentage record for the Buccaneers right now, for any kicker that's had at least 50 kicks. And, you know, so that's great. But even though he's had a great career and 2 very good years, 53 of 61 is very good no matter how you slice it. Only missed 1 field goal in the postseason. That was last year in 2 seasons. So he's done great. That said, Coach Bowles said directly it is an open competition between him and first-year man Jose Borregales. Open competition were the exact words that he used. So, and I don't think Ryan Succop would be afraid of that.
No.
You know, he's probably welcoming competition, probably believes he'll win, and maybe he will. But the Buccaneers kept Jose Borregales around all year last year on the practice squad. They used that practice squad protection rule on him every week from week 2 on, you know, so somebody wouldn't poach him off a roster at the end of a week if one of their kickers got hurt. And they obviously like him enough to have done that. So I think Jose put in his year on the practice squad. They stuck with the veteran, but now he gets his actual shot to see if he can unseat Ryan Suckup, the veteran, and Coach Bowles said it really comes down to what they do under the lights in the preseason games.
Yeah, and do you think there is going to be a bigger emphasis on wanting some of those longer field goals this year in particular?
That's a very good point because, as I noted up there, Ryan Suckup has been very, very accurate, but our longest field goal last year was 48 yards, and I don't even think we even attempted one from 50 or beyond because I think they thought that wasn't his strength at this point in his career. So you bring up a very good point. It was the first time since 2016 that the Buccaneers haven't had at least one 50-plus yard field goal. So, yes, I think they would like to have that leg where they feel like if they have a 51 or a 52, they feel confident enough in going for it.
Yeah, and I assume accuracy at large in terms of the field goals you will attempt more often will be the primary thing that wins you the job, but maybe if all things are equal, the stronger leg maybe would be the tiebreaker.
Yeah, that could be true. And I remember 2 years ago with Ryan Suckup and Coach saying we wanted a guy, Coach Arians at the time, saying we wanted a guy that we knew would make the ones you need to make, the 30, 40 yard field goals. Those are the ones you have to make. It's like we needed to make sure we had that in the bag. And as it turns out, you probably sacrificed a little bit of distance because of that. But yeah, if you had two guys that were pretty much both accurate, but one you felt could give you a 52-yarder every now and then, you'd probably break the tie,
right.
as you said.
Yeah, and then another guy we got to hear from in minicamp was Carlton Davis, a guy who has been sort of the leader of that secondary in a lot of ways, your elder statesman for a while, which was crazy that he got that title so young.
Yeah.
What did we learn from him and his goals for maybe himself or the secondary at large this year?
Well, as you know, Carlton got the big contract. He was going to get it from somewhere. It was lucky for us that we managed to keep him, but he got a well-deserved long-term second contract, and good for him. But he made a point of saying he's more motivated than ever because of that, because he wants to prove that the front office made the right decision by doing that. So you don't have to, sometimes people worry about a guy getting his first big contract and he's less motivated. Hey, I've got paid. I don't think we're going to have to worry about that with Carlton. I actually don't think you have to worry about that with most guys.
Right,
but I guess it happens from time to time. But one thing, both Carlton, not both because there's three of them, Carlton Davis, Jamel Dean, and Antoine Winfield Jr. all made a point when they had their time at the podium or the table to say they really wanted to up their interception totals this year. In Carlton's case, he feels like he's there a lot. He said he thinks he's an all-pro caliber player, but he says on a lot of plays, and this is the way he put it, he's all-pro for 80% of the play. But when it comes to actually getting the ball in his hands, that's where he needs to complete it and be 100%. And he did have 4 interceptions in 2020, but he only had 1 last year and 1 the year before. He wants to turn more of his times around the football, more of his passes defense, which he leads the league in over the last 3 years, into interceptions. The thing is, the way the NFL is nowadays, interceptions have declined drastically decade by decade. To last year, it was only about 0.8 interceptions per team per game. And we had 17 interceptions, so we had 1 per game. So we were even a little bit above average. So it seems like the Bucs aren't getting a lot of interceptions, but really they are keeping up with the rest of the league. So, Carlton Davis says he wants to get more interceptions. His 5 would give him a career high. We, as you saw in that list just a moment ago, we haven't had a guy lead the team with 5 interceptions or more since 2013. And you want to take a guess who that was?
Ooh, man. Would that have been? That's not Rondé. That's too late.
No, it was Levante David.
Levante led?
Yeah, it was that all-pro year for him when he had 5 interceptions and 7 sacks.
Wow.
So the last defensive back to have 5 or more interceptions for us, I think, was Aqib Talib.
That's
but
incredible.
It's been a while.
A long time, yeah. That's amazing. What an interesting stat. All right, we're going to dive into some of these Facebook questions. And our first one was, how do you think the running back position will shape up, and who will be backing up Leonard Fournette?
It doesn't say who asked the question.
It doesn't. I don't know what happened.
Well, whoever did, good job with the question. I think it's probably, here's what I would say. Obviously, Ronald Jones departed via free agency, and the Buccaneers drafted Rachaad White in the 3rd round. And then otherwise, you still have Keyshawn Vaughn and Giovanni Bernard. So it's basically the same setup. However, Ronald Jones got 101 carries last year, and Leonard Fournette got 180. Both of them probably would have been a little bit higher, but for some late season injuries and so forth. But I could see Rachaad White maybe getting a larger part of the offense, maybe getting a few more snaps, because we just have to say it like it is at this point. Ronald Jones' time here is over. I don't think the team ever trusted him in passing situations. I don't think they trusted his pass protection. So he wasn't a guy you were going to have on the field on 3rd down. So Rachaad White is a guy that if he can prove that he's kind of a dynamic runner, and he averaged like 6.1 yards per carry at Arizona State, if they're going to give him some carries, they also, as long as he can pass protect, he's a dynamic pass catcher, he could be on the field more often than Ronald Jones was. So I think Leonard Fournette is still your bell cow back. He's your main first and second down back. The interesting part will be how much does Rachaad White eat into his receptions?
Right.
Because last year Leonard Fournette was leading the league among running backs at the time he got hurt with 69 receptions. Does Rachaad White eat into that, and does he thereby, because he can do that, eat into the snap total a little bit more than Ronald Jones did? So I don't know the answer to that yet, but I think that's going to be the interesting question about the running back.
Okay.
Core.
Interesting. All right. Our next one is from Josh, and he said, who would you say is the dark horse must-watch rookie from minicamp moving forward?
Well, we were just talking about this guy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, I think we know who our vote is.
You teed up an answer for me. And really, I mean, it's the obvious answer simply because he's the one guy basically that Todd Bowles talked about when asked this sort of question, and it's Utah State wide receiver Devin Tompkins. You were with him on a community thing recently, right?
Yes, yes.
So you know, not the biggest guy in the world, right? And that's probably why he went undrafted, because he's fast.
I think he's about, what, 5'7", something like that?
I think he's listed at 5'8", but you were standing next to him, so maybe, you know, a lot of the times 5'8" is really more like 5'7".
Yeah, I was like, I'm 5'8".
He's one of the 3 undrafted rookies we signed who are all kind of smaller than usual but had huge production in college. He was at Utah State at something like 1,700 yards. He came into OTAs and minicamp and really stood out. And there was an opportunity for him to do so because Chris Godwin is still coming back from injury. Scotty Miller's working through some kind of injury. Russell Gage isn't practicing yet. So there was opportunities, there were snaps for some of these guys to get longer looks, and really he apparently took advantage of that with a lot of production, smooth route running, and speed and good hands. And so, you know, it's going to be tough to crack the Bucs receiving core, especially depending upon how soon Chris Godwin can play. But, you know, he's going into camp with eyes on him. Like Coach Bowles said, I want to see what this guy can do in training camp when the competition really heats up. So, and you know, all those guys, their first priority obviously is trying to win a spot on the 53-man roster, and good luck, hopefully he does so. But even if Devin Tompkins or any of these other young guys can't quite crack the 53 to start, it's a 16-man practice squad again, and making the practice squad is that's a good outcome for an undrafted rookie. I mean, that's a good start for them, because a lot of those guys, that's a stepping stone, like a Cyril Grayson or something. That's a stepping stone to eventually getting a shot.
Okay.
So that's a guy to keep an eye on.
Yeah, that's a good one. All right, so our next one, this also doesn't show a name, but says, is there any opportunity for Hicks and our new DT draft pick, Logan Hall, to play side by side with Vita Vea together?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be a variety of packages. I think though, probably Logan Hall and Akeem Hicks are kind of in the same role. You know, Vita Vea is your nose tackle. Will Golston is more of your strong side. What you call in a 3-4, you call an end. I know he's an interior defensive lineman, but he's really good on the strong side, especially against the run. Whereas Logan Hall and Akeem Hicks are both probably more like 3 technique guys. And so I think you brought Akeem in more to take off some of the load of Logan Hall. And in when you're talking about those 2 guys plus Vita, you're talking about the base 3 down lineman package, not the sub packages where one of those guys, usually Will, comes off and you bring in another DB. So and then you just basically have a 4-man line with your 2 outside linebackers, and then 2 of those guys. It's usually Vita, and it was Ndamukong Suh. Now it'll probably be either Logan Hall or Akeem Hicks. So yeah, there'll be some time when those 2 guys are on the field together with Vita, but probably not a ton. Okay.
Our next one is from Torian, which I like that name.
Torian?
What do you see in Jalen Darden's production this year?
That's a big question. Mike Evans was asked about him and said some good things. Said he came in last year just in terms of being a receiver, and Mike thought he looked very polished right from the go, but he didn't really know the playbook. And Mike says he's got a much better grasp on the playbook now. So hopefully those 2 things will mesh together and they'll find some role for him in offense. I think the big question with Jalen is he going to win and keep that return job again? Because when the Buccaneers drafted him in the 4th round after trading up a little bit out of North Texas last year, I know that a big part of that was they were hoping he could be a dynamic return man, which is something the Buccaneers have been looking for since the days of Clifton Smith more than a decade ago. So I think that's the big question with Jalen. I think that really helps him secure a roster spot if he's showing that he can give you some splash plays in the return game. And he did a couple times last year, but probably not as frequently or as consistently as the Bucs would have liked.
Okay, well that is going to do it for us on this edition of Buccaneers Insider Live presented by Miller Lite. Thanks as always for joining us. We'll see you next time.